Hello everyone, welcome back to Axelerant webinar series from Concept to Code. I am Trupti Bhosle, your host for today's webinar. So in this webinar series of Concept to Code, we discuss about SDLC and its different phases. In the last two episodes, we discussed about two phases of SDLC, which were requirement gathering phase and grooming phase. If you have not watched the videos before, please do take a look at those. So in today's webinar, we are going to discuss about the third phase of SDLC, which is the estimation phase. In my opinion, this is a very critical phase because anything that happens in this phase directly affects the project delivery. To know more about estimation phase and the do's and don'ts of this phase, let's have our presenter for today's webinar, Kalaiselvan.
Hello, hi everyone. Hi Trupti.
Hi, Kalai. So, Kalai, you have already delivered, two webinars on the SDLC phases. So, how critical is this estimation phase in SDLC?
Yeah, as you said rightly, estimation is one of the crucial phases that decides the success of your project. And you learn, you as in any phase, you also learn a lot in this phase. But the impact of doing it right or wrong is more visibly seen in this phase than in other phases, and it's something that's more visible to the customer as well.
Right, right. Cool. Let's dive into your presentation, Kalai.
Hello everyone, welcome to part 3 of Concept to Code. And in the previous parts, we saw about requirement gathering, grooming, and in this part, we will look at estimation. So, before we go into the entry and exit criteria for estimation, I would like to touch base on a couple of concepts. The first thing is I would like to start with a question which is on everyone's mind, like why do we estimate? Like what are the reasons we estimate? And the most obvious reasons are time being one, to know how much time something will take, followed by the schedule or the planning in calendar days, how much time it will take in order to schedule your work and when will be your ETA, and also to provide clarity for the client, more importantly to see if it fits the budget or not and what adjustment needs to be done. And along with it, it's also to plan your capacity internally, whether you will be able to fulfill the estimates with the available team capacity, or you would need to expand your team, or maybe you already are overstaffed. So in all these cases, the estimates helps us obviously, and but can we live without estimates? Like, why do we still, other than these things, what are the other reasons we do it? So to understand this, I would like to give you an analogy, which is like, let's say that you're building an house, and if your builder was a very experienced and successful one, and you have had good experience with them working earlier as well, told you that your house would be built in its own time, precisely as per the plan which you approved. So in this case, you know the builder, you know the plan, how what is going to be the outcome, but still they have not given you a time when it would be available to you. So in this case, just say I would like you to reflect on the kind of emotions or what you would think in your mind, and that's the role of what estimations play as well. So it's important to give estimates, the right kind of estimates with the right assumptions and everything, which we will see in this session, because that kind of gives that visibility and confidence to all the stakeholders who are involved. So yeah, without further ado, we will go further. So before we go into it, I would like to touch base, like I told, couple of concepts. The first one being Rumsfeld Matrix, and this Rumsfeld Matrix is a model. It's a 2x2 model, like we saw in earlier parts as well, which is a project management tool used to identify risk. So you have two quadrants here. One being in the one column, the column being the identification of a particular risk, and the certainty being how certain it will occur. So, starting with the most known things, it is the known, which is your identified knowledge, and this is the most confident area where you know that this is how you need to do this, and you are very confident that you will be able to do it. And the second part is known unknown, which is identified risk. And these are your assumptions. So this risk needs to be converted into assumptions, which we will cover later as well. However, these are your known risks. So you know that this might happen, but however, you're not certain how certain it will happen. What is the probability of that happening? But you know this is the risk that you foresee. So those are your known unknowns. And the other part is unknown known, which is your untapped knowledge. These are your sweet surprises that like experience in other projects for the same kind of work that you did, or the data or the solutions that are available in internal support. And the final part is unknown unknowns, which is the unidentified risk. And these are your unexpected last minute issues. And these are not so sweet surprises for us, right? So here we will focus more on how to identify your known unknown, which is your least confident area. Yeah. And before that, I have a warning. So that is, there are assumptions again. So, as per Oxford Learner dictionaries, an assumption is a belief or a feeling that something is true or that something will happen, although there is no proof. So, it's important that we do not have any proof that something will happen or something will not happen, but it is that belief or feeling is what is called as an assumption. So, yeah. But how do we identify these assumptions? So, how do we uncover them in any project? There are assumptions, but how do we uncover them? So, it's better to uncover them because if not done, it can come back to you as an false understanding of the system. So it's better you uncover those assumptions and also point it out to all the stakeholders involved that this is the assumption that you are making, so that in case if something changes, then your assumptions also changes. So based on the stakes at hand and time available, you need to take appropriate action. And in this diagram, you can see two dimensions, one being the risk involved and another being the time involved. But there are other dimensions as well, like complexity, cost savings or budget available, the innovation potential of your organization, user engagement, and also regulatory compliances. So we will focus on these two dimensions. Let's say that the risk is low and time is also less. In this case, you need to compensate for hidden assumptions. You use pre-built templates here. You don't do any custom solutions. You use proven solutions and try to mitigate your risk. And considering the risk is low here, but you have less time as well. So the other quadrant is the risk is still low, but you have more time. This is a very ideal scenario where you can take the time to evaluate the necessary impact of the project, and you also consider reallocating your resources outside of your projects as well. It can be a tool or it can be your team members as well. And also it's important that you optimize the processes without urgency. And the other quadrant is when the risk is high, but you also have more time. So this is also a good place to be. Even though the risk is high, you have more time. So you can conduct more extensive research and identify and understand the risk and develop and iterate prototypes so that whatever that are unknown for you, you convert those unknowns into knowns by doing these prototypes. And finally, you also manage risk to phased rollouts. So, and the last quadrant is the most tricky quadrant where the risk is high and the time is also low. So in this case, you have to engage diverse participants and experts to get broad perspectives on different areas involved in your project and prioritize rapid decision making. So you need to make sure that you are taking a decision soon and you are not in an analysis paralysis mode, but you are also involving the right kind of experts and people who can contribute towards that decision. And finally, it's important you focus on critical risk areas first. From the list of risk, it's important you pick up the top 3 or top 5 critical risk areas and you get different perspectives and you see how you can kind of mitigate them. So all these helps you to uncover your risk. However, other than just uncovering your risk during that process, it's important that you follow certain kind of guidelines as well, which is like self-deception in decision making, because it is very natural for us to be biased towards a particular way of doing things or believing that this will always work. So that's the self-deception that we have, and it's important that the leaders who take the decisions are objective and not subjective for the biases. And it's also important to ask questions and confront real concerns as well. When you ask questions, you will also get good amount of concerns, and it might challenge you. So it's important that you don't push it away, and you confront those concerns and see what can be done to address them. And you can always assume in for clarity, like where you dive deep and understand what is required here, so that you make the right assumptions in that case. And you also assume how to simplify, which can be like descoping certain things so that it can be covered later on. So it's even descoping things is still an assumption. You can call it out as an assumption that we are not considering these due to these reasons, and that is what is assuming out. And finally, it's important to consider the cultural and technological impacts as well. Cultural impacts in the sense your customers might be in a country where they might be using more tablets than mobiles. In those cases, it's important that you consider your website or whatever you develop is more working well with tablets as well. Yeah, but however, in India, for example, we do use a lot of mobiles than tablets, though both have been increasing now. So it's important you consider the cultural aspects as well, like this example. And there might be even more use cases where you need to consider the cultural differences. And the technological impacts is something like, let's say that since we work majorly in Drupal, let's say that you are estimating for the current Drupal version, and that version is going to be end of life in next 2 months or 3 months. So by the time you deploy this to production, you might be looking at a different Drupal version. So it's important you understand the what is coming for you in future as well, and accommodate those in your estimates also, so that your estimates cover till the final outcome that you expect it to be. So yeah, let's go further into other entry and exit criteria. So as you know, the entry criteria for estimation is like the completion of the previous phases, obviously the why part, which is the requirement gathering, and the how part, which is the grooming and POC, which we saw in the last part. So the exit criteria is that you decode your Rumsfeld matrix and identify your known unknowns, which is your assumptions. And finally, you also need to estimate the ask and get the estimations from all the stakeholders who are involved, including the QA, including the tech lead and the PM as well. We will see further what are the roles involved in each of these team members for now. So I am considering a very minimal team here, considering a developer, a QA, and a tech lead and PM. So the accountability of the estimates is more with the developer and the QA who does the estimates. The developer does the development estimates and the QA does the estimates for testing. And the tech lead and the PM needs to be kind of consulted in a pull basis. And whenever you need any clarification or kind of an approval on your approach or something like that, so you can always pull them and consult them whenever you need. However, the accountability for the estimates lies with the developer and the QA for those things which they estimated. And yeah, apart from this, there are other estimates like team coordination efforts, so that lies with the entire team as well. So what can we do differently in estimation? So there are a lot of things which I kind of learned. So the first one is that estimation is not some magical number that you would want to arrive. Uh, uh, you need to make sure that you give a range of estimates, and rather than a single number, because it's always difficult to arrive at that number. And it giving a range also gives you that giving a range also makes you that you kind of have a low, medium, and worst case scenarios also covered as well. So it's important that you continuously monitor and report deviations. Like in your daily effort, you need to continuously track your efforts against your estimates, and you also need to make sure that you are also reporting it. If there are major deviations that you see, or if your estimates or if your actuals might exceed your estimates, it is important you call that out openly, as frequent and as early as possible. And don't hesitate to pivot. So if you decided on an approach and you notice that it is something like it's not going to work, then feel free to pivot, call it out that as well openly, and pivot and go do an alternate approach. And of course, you might need to re-estimate and change your assumptions, and reiterate in this case. And you also, it's important, the estimation template kind of plays a crucial role here, because as you know, at Axelerant we have a major master estimation template which we use across projects, and we also have a CDM estimation template where we do ticket level estimations. So it's important that you use the right estimation templates. We usually recommend using the master estimation templates in case you forecast that the efforts will be more than a week. If not, you can use the CDM estimation template if it's less than a week. So, and more than anything, be grateful for your fears. So your fears are telling something very important, which is like each of your fears might be sharing you a risk that you might foresee, and it's important that you convert that risk into an assumption. So this requires you to change the way you look at the risk. So instead of looking at it as I am afraid that this might happen, then you have to look at the positive side and call out that this estimate that I am providing is considering with the assumption that this works well. If this doesn't work well, then the estimate might change. So you just need to look at the positive side of the risk and call that out openly, what you are expecting and what to happen. And if this doesn't happen, then my numbers will also change. And similarly, it's important to also ask yourself difficult questions now during the estimation phase. It is much better than facing difficult situations later on in implementation or in deployment phases. And also, it's important that you take accountability for overruns. And moreover, the ticket estimate that you see in the Jira or whatever tool that you use, the remaining time is not the remaining time for development. It's the remaining time for the entire ticket. So you need to make sure that whatever efforts you have spent, you are mapping it against the development effort and not the total estimate against the ticket. So, and that will help us to call out overruns and track where overruns happened in which role, and they can improve further in the next estimations. And you can accelerate your learning of how to estimate things by estimating bugs, and it will give you a good exposure of how to do estimations. And more than anything, this is a very crucial phase, and hence it's important that you reach out for help. In you have doubts, you might have a lot of doubts in your mind, and reach out for help, ask questions. And finally, it's all about practice. You need to practice, you will fail, and you will find out your gaps, and then you need to improve on it the next time you estimate it, and call out your assumptions better, and that's how you improve on your estimation skills as well. So, what is the significance of this phase? This phase gives an idea of how long it will take. It's just an idea. It's not the actuals. So it's important that you have that, and you also continuously kind of retrace it, whether your actuals are kind of closer to the estimate still, to some extent at least. And when done right, it increases the client relationship and confidence for the entire team, and it will be a valuable experience for everyone, including the client. And it's important that we make this a good experience for everyone involved.
Hey, Kalai, thank you. Thank you for this great presentation. I learned about Rumsfeld Matrix from this webinar itself. I had not heard about it before. If you want to know more about estimation techniques for your projects, please scan the QR code which would be displayed on the screen. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Thank you, Kalai, for sharing your knowledge on estimation and answering to all our questions. Thank you once again, and we will be back with yet another webinar very soon. Thank you. Take care.